The year was 2021, and Gikuyu High School was alive with the bustling energy of a new term. Amid the chaos of ringing bells and shuffling feet, Mr. Kimani made his entrance. Fresh from university, he was a young teacher with a magnetic presence that could command any room. Tall and athletic, with a deep, rich complexion, Mr. Kimani quickly captured the attention of students and teachers alike. But there was something else, an air of mystery about him. His passion for literature poured out with each lesson, leaving students hanging on his every word. In his very first English and literature class, he introduced himself, his voice calm and steady, eyes piercing yet kind. My name is Mr. Kimani. This year, we are not just going to learn literature, we are going to live it. Sitting near the back of the class was Abigael, a Form 2 student with a quiet intensity and a love for reading. She was known for her disciplined, studious nature and had rarely paid any mind to teachers beyond what was required. But Mr. Kimani was different. His lessons were spellbinding, each session unraveling new words, making words come alive in a way she'd never experienced. And though she tried to ignore it, his presence stirred something in her she couldn't quite explain, a curiosity she couldn't shake. Their connection began in innocently enough. Abigail often stayed behind after class, asking Mr. Kimani questions about the day's readings. She hung on to his every answer, soaking up his insights like a sponge. Mr. Kimani noticed her too, a rare, inquisitive mind and a quiet beauty that seemed to radiate from within. Her deep, thoughtful questions revealed a maturity beyond her years, but he was careful, always maintaining a professional distance, reminding himself of his role as her teacher. One evening, after a particularly moving poetry lesson, Abigail lingered in the classroom, clutching her notebook with both hands. As the last student left, she hesitated, then looked up at him with shy determination. Mr. Kimani, she began, her voice barely a whisper. How do you make words mean so much? He smiled, a warm, disarming smile that made her heart skip a beat. Literature has a way of reaching places we don't always understand. It helps us see parts of ourselves we might never have discovered otherwise. Their eyes met, and in that brief, shared silence, something unspoken passed between them. A spark, both thrilling and terrifying. In the weeks that followed, their interactions deepened, each moment becoming a delicate dance of restraint. Abigail would find any excuse to stay behind after class, sometimes just to share her thoughts on a line of poetry or a character's struggle. Mr. Kimani grew wary, sensing the dangerous ground they were treading, yet he couldn't deny the way his heart quickened whenever she was near. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. Other students noticed Abigail's frequent visits to Mr. Kimani's office, and soon rumors began to circulate through the school. Teachers exchanged knowing glances, warning him subtly to be cautious. He tried to heed their advice, but the connection he felt with Abigail was like nothing he'd ever experienced before. Every moment spent with her felt like walking a tightrope, thrilling, yet laced with a constant risk of falling. One afternoon, after a quiet exchange in the library, Mr. Kimani caught himself leaning too close to her, their faces inches apart. He pulled back abruptly, his face tight with frustration. Abigail, you shouldn't be here so often, he said, his tone harsher than he intended. Her face fell, the light in her eyes dimming. Heart flashed across her expression as she turned to leave without a word. He cursed himself, feeling the sting of his own reprimand, but he knew he had no choice. This was wrong, so terribly wrong. Yet the ache in his chest lingered long after she walked away. The rumors grew louder. Concerned teachers spoke to the principal, who called Mr. Kimani in for a formal warning. "We've noticed some unusual attention between you and one of our students, Mr. Kimani," the principal said, his tone stern. "This is highly inappropriate and it must stop immediately. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," Mr. Kimani replied, his heart sinking. He knew the risks and he could lose everything: his career, his reputation, even his freedom. Yet he couldn't deny what he felt. The warning forced him to create distance. He became cold, professional, treating Abigail like any other student. Her attempts to reach out were met with brief, formal responses, and he avoided her gaze as much as possible. Abigail, heartbroken, became withdrawn, her usual spark dimming. Her friends noticed her change in behavior, whispering about her mysterious sadness, but she kept her pain hidden, burying her feelings in her studies. Despite the tension, time began to do its work. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and Mr. Kimani grew more adept at hiding his feelings. Abigail's visits became infrequent, her resolve to move forward growing stronger. The end of her Form 2 year came and went, followed by Form 3, and by the time she was in her final year, she was a changed person. She was focused, driven, and determined to leave high school with a strong record. Mr. Kimani watched her from a distance, proud yet aching with regret. He had waited, hoping the feelings would fade, but they only grew stronger as she matured. He told himself he would wait. If there was truly something between them, he would wait for her to finish high school to give her the freedom to choose her own path. The day of her graduation was bittersweet. He watched from the back of the assembly hall as she received her diploma, her smile radiant and full of life. As she left the school grounds for the last time, she stole one final glance over her shoulder, their eyes meeting briefly. In that fleeting moment, she knew he was waiting. Years passed, and Abigail was accepted into a prestigious university to study literature, inspired by her old English teacher. She threw herself into her studies, pushing herself to succeed. Time softened her heartache, but she never forgot Mr. Kimani, and the hope of seeing him again became a quiet dream she'd held close. After graduation, Abigail returned to her hometown and reached out to Mr. Kimani. They met in a quiet cave where they could finally speak as equals, free of the constraints that had once held them apart. They shared stories, laughter, and memories, the years of tension melting into warmth and familiarity. Their connection was still there, stronger than ever, but now it could finally be realized without fear. Their courtship was filled with tenderness and respect, both aware of the trials they'd overcome. Months later, they were married in a simple, heartfelt ceremony. Friends, family, and former colleagues gathered, witnessing a love that had waited in silence, a love that had defied rules and outlasted time. As Mr. and Mrs. Kimani exchanged vows, they knew their journey had only just begun. What had once been whispers in the classroom was now a testament to patience, resilience, and the belief that love, when true, finds a way. Sometimes, the heart waits quietly, biding its time, knowing that the truest love is worth waiting for. Subscribe for more stories.